Record.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Beans World 77 show. And I kind of want to be a bit more deep and philosophical about this. And basically, this is going to be unscripted. So, yeah. And I've had a couple of beers, so my brain is really going to open on this one. And basically, we're all going to die. You know, we're all going to die and we're all going to go somewhere. Whether it be a heaven or a hell or a nirvana or whatever the frick it'll be, you know, it will not be paradise because paradise does not exist anymore. Unless you're some kind of, you know, you're sort of swimming around in the spiritual realm trying to work out what the frick paradise is. Now, by the way, I personally think that paradise just seems to be a slang word for heaven because we don't know what paradise is. You know, it's like joy. It's like joy seems to be mixed between happiness and sadness. And if you really want to be melancholic about this, you know, joy does sort of not, you know, joy is kind of where you're at the peak of some form of climax, if you will. You know, joy is where you've reached that peak and you think you're satisfied, but you're not. Because you see, if you were satisfied, you would be there. But unfortunately, you are very unsure. You are sort of mixed, because sometimes, a lot of times when people are joyful, they're not sure whether they're sad or happy. You get this form of tears of sadness, and then you get this, you know, it's like you get this sort of happiness kind of feel. It's like you've reached the peak of the high, but as soon as you've got to the high, it's like, ooh, no, hold on, I need to come back down. But instead of getting to this wonderful high, you come crashing down in the pile of whatever it may be kind of thing. And that's basically what joy is. Do you know what I'm saying? And so paradise is kind of neither heaven, neither hell, neither purgatory, neither nowhere. You know, with you stuck in this form of existence of what it may be, and we're not sure what that is. We're very sort of, but of course, we don't explore what that is, because if you explored it, your brain would literally be messed up. In fact, your mind would be messed up. And in fact, now we've discovered how the real world works, or well, we don't. We just pretend that we do. Our minds are messed up to the point where we're killing each other, because we're trained to hate each other, to the point where we do kill each other. And in fact, there's much more kill, because we're born to kill now. Sorry, we're born to hate. And through that hate, we kill. And through the kill, we kill more. And therefore, we form this thing, aggression. And yeah. So anyway, by the way, I don't give a shit about that, because the world is the way the world is. And to be honest with you, the world is a far more messed up place than we ever knew, because we're trying to suss out what everything is, you know? And it's like, you know, And hey, every kid will soon be born with a knife in their hand, ready to kill granny or granddad. So yeah, happy Friday, everyone. Yeah, just saying. But I want to basically say that everyone will believe in something. Even the people that say they don't believe in something. Those people that say they don't believe in something are either scared or they're scared, and they hide the fear because the people saying, well, the Bible's fiction or God doesn't exist, right? They don't want to think about it because they know what God really is, or they know what God really represents. But you see, without that fear, we would not be safe. It's a strange world. I mean, you look at, say, things like Noah's Ark, for example, right? And basically, because it wasn't that the people didn't believe, right? It's because the people worship things that they shouldn't have been worshipping. And they basically killed children and drank their blood and basically had sex with them to be fulfilled with this power. And it's still going on today, this is basically why I disagree with pedophilia. Call it what you will. MAPS, LGBTQ, whatever the frick, whatever light bulb you lick or wall you worship. It is what it is, do you know what I'm saying? And a paedophile's a paedophile. It's just like calling a spade, isn't it, really? I mean, some people may identify a spade as a spade. Do I really give two hoots about them? No. But what I do give two hoots about is who you really worship and who you stand by. And this is why you should really care who is in the pulpit. And, if you've got someone who's gay in the pulpit, this is when you should start worrying. Because, but anyway, the church has started marrying gays. That's not my worry, right? My worry is putting gays in the pulpit, right? Now, I'm not against women being vicars because there were women in the Bible, but people with the same sex, and people saying, oh, it's not a sin. Well, no, it's not necessarily a sin to be messed up. Not messed up, but genetically messed up, if you know what I'm saying, right? If you want to stick a traffic cone up your ass, then be my guest, right? However, if you want to go in a pulpit and worship the same God, well, preach about the same God that everyone knows and loves, and, preach about the person that was put on the cross and all of that, all the rest of that, right? If you want to do that and at the end of the day have a traffic cone shoved up your ass, then please don't be in the pulpit. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying don't worship the Lord because you have the same right as everybody else. What you don't have is the right to preach that and whatever you believe. Can you see what I'm saying? I'm hoping that you do. If not, then yeah. But technically, right now, this is what my problem is. Because people do ask on my Facebook page, people do message me and ask, what's the problem? And I won't personally, however, this is what I will say, right? and this is about as much as I'm going to say it, right? Please be wary of what your children are being taught in school. Now, I personally think that there's going to be a lot more homeschooling. Why? Because the parents... Now, I understand people piss their parents off, right? But there's going to be less of the kids pissing off their parents and more of the grown-ups or society pissing off the parents. Now, if you think that's confusing you, well, let's just say that the government wants to warp the children's minds into a point where the grown-ups don't understand. You know, when I was young, we knew how to piss our parents off quite easily with playing music they didn't like, or, you know, having views and opinions. It sort of happens now, but kids now will talk gibbery gibberish, you know, like, you know, 6, 7, or skibbity gappity blibbly blobbity poop diddly oop diddly up diddly oop. Now, by the way, that means nothing. You know, we spoke like that when we were kids anyway, but nowadays it's things that mean what only they mean. No, this is where the loneliness epidemic starts. The children have their own language, but it's not so they can be in with that crowd. It's so they can't be in with that crowd. But anyway, I'm sure you'll understand what brain rot is and what brain rot does. And if you don't, watch Coco Melon for 24 hours. Actually, no, don't bother. Dearie me. Anyway, yeah. And I personally, you know, if they do start teaching their kids how to hate the world, in fact, no, they are already doing that. I think homeschooling by parents who have seen the world from their point of view and are seeing it now from their point of view should start teaching children how to use their brain properly, which is what schools were originally teaching. I think what you need to teach kids first is how to read and write. That is the most important thing. Then you teach them how to value things. And then you teach them how to get their own train of thought, right? But maybe teach them how to get their own train of thought before you teach them the other thing. Because with that, then they can decide what, you know, and you can break things into pieces. You can give them one question, like, where do you think you go when we die? Because let's face it, we're all going to go, you know? We're really all going to go. We're all going to go together when we go, if that makes any sense. If not, then you will go. Not very soon, I hope. Or maybe soon. Or maybe it may not just be your time. You may think, today may be my time. I may walk out and get struck by lightning, but oh no, it might just be the bad curry that I had last night, for instance. Or maybe it might just be your boss telling you that you've screwed up, so therefore get a life, or get another job, or you've had this job, so therefore get another job and another life. You are the weakest link in the chain. Goodbye, good riddance, sod off, we don't need you, right? And therefore, then it may feel like your life is ending. But really, that's not real. Because when your life is really ending, it won't be this voice that you hear. It'll be a very different voice entirely. Well, let's just hope it is, by the way, because if it isn't, then hopefully it'll be a big bang, so we all think. Or, so a lot of conspiracy theorists like to think, we all get sucked into a huge vacuum where we become nothing. But you can never imagine what that will be. You can't even imagine what nothing will be. Because even though you may think, we'll go into specks of dust, well, nothing is not a speck of dust, because a speck of dust is something. People go, oh, well, we might go into blobs of liquid and we'll all be sort of washed up or washed away. But you've still got things, you've still got forms. Liquid is something, and then you've got like pitch blackness. We'll all just go into pitch blackness. But still, you've got something, because what would you go into, and what would you become, and how would you evaporate, and what would you be, and what would be left? And these are questions that we cannot imagine nothing. Our brains are just, it's hard to overthink what nothing would be. What would the world be if there was nothing there? Now, I understand that nothing may be an empty field, but the empty field still has things in it. It still has grass. It still has fences. It still has air, oxygen. When it rains, there may be a ditch nearby, so it'll have water. There's insects that come and feed the grass. So there is things there. It's just that we may not see what feeds that form of life. And therefore, it's like we can't see everything that feeds our brains and feeds our thoughts. And we don't understand where the thoughts come from, and we don't understand what we're seeing. So if there was nothing, there would be no thoughts, there would be no voice, there would be nothing, and it's hard to imagine. And people might think, well, when we die, there'll be nothing. But, that's just a conspiracy. Because when we die, there will be something. It's just we can't imagine it, and we won't be able to imagine what it'll be. Like, there is only a vision, and we don't know what that vision truly is. We know that the streets will be paved with gold and whatever, but it all depends. We don't know what it is. And why are these religious people, I'm not talking about true Christians, true loving Christians that love and serve our Lord. No. I'm talking about people who throw money at other people to keep other people going, and are pushing and shoving each other and kicking and scraping at each other and forming these cliques to hold the people that are kicking and scraping at each other, to keep them held up by other people that are kicking and scraping at each other. And anyone that's got their own mind, they're kicked straight in a very dark place, because they're evil for some known reason, because they're not buying their way into heaven, because they're seen as someone who cannot give whatever time they've got, so they're treated like some form of a jerk, because they obviously can't give any time or money whatsoever. And it's not like they don't earn anything, because they do. It's just they have a right form of mind and brain and soul, and therefore they're the quiet ones in the church. They just sit in the church and don't bother anybody, and they leave the church and don't bother anybody. And if the people need them, they will help somebody, but they won't help the ones that are kicking and scraping at the ones just to hold the ones who are kicking and screaming, because they're worried that if they're not doing that kicking and screaming, then they're obviously sitting in the fire and they're getting burnt in a very dark hole. But can you see where this is going, right? And I personally, even though I'm a drummer in the church, I personally, even though I've got things I'd love to say, I don't say them because I know that people, like, I have said things that have hurt people, but I'm glad that they've hurt people. And that's not the person that I want to be, but I think that the people getting hurt are obviously the people that don't believe in what I believe in personally. It's nothing to do with the person that died on the cross. No, it's got nothing to do with anything like that. It's got nothing to do with the light and the revelating light, nothing like that. No, they're worried about people's data being protected, which it should be. But whose data are we actually protecting? And whose voice are we really protecting? And it's, anyway, and that's the whole thing. And it's, they will get someone who can kick someone the hardest, basically. That's what they'll get. Now, I don't mean in the actual physical sense, but if you go to church and you can just judge, and they do say a lot. You can say, the ones that say a lot as well. The ones that say a lot and get their hands stuck in there. Oh, they really get their hands stuck in there. And they really love to get burnt by the fire. They really like to they're ones that are stood right in the flames, right in the smoke of it all. And they're the ones that aren't just burning themselves, but burning others. And when their eyes get opened, they're pooing themselves. Well, they're not just pooing themselves, they're pooing themselves and pooing on others because they can't see right through the poo that they're in. And then they realise, and then they expect everybody to traipse through that poo. Oh, and by the way, they get carried through this poo, by the way. They get carried through this poo by all the cliques that are protecting their poo. And then when they see it, they get pooed themselves, and then they poo on everything else. And then they get carried through the poo until there's that much poo that they just think, right, oh, we can't carry you through this anymore. You'll have to clean it up yourself, And, yeah. Because the cliques, they get so... I mean, here's an example, right, of how dangerous a clique is, right? I know a few people, cliquey people, who just would not leave the clique that they were in. I was, frick this. I could see that they were, but I realised who the real dangerous ones were and who the ones weren't. Because the real dangerous ones got screwed up, should we say. It's got screwed up like a piece of paper. And guess what? They went crying to the people who weren't cliquey, right? And quite recently on TikTok, right, I've been promoting my Beans World stuff, and I've not spoke to these people for a while. Guess what? They've been cancelled. I won't say how this has happened, but they've been cancelled, I believe. Now, they are on TikTok, but their comments or whatever, they've been cancelled. Guess who they've come to? Oh, yeah, little old me, who's just... No, to be honest with you, I don't really... All I do on TikTok now is search, and I search for the stuff that I need to search for and promote my YouTube, and that's all I do on TikTok, right? What do these people do on TikTok? Well, they scream about themselves to the point where they want other people to know, and they just amplify everything. Once you question it, they're like, oh, but anyway, once they're stuck I know a couple of people, I ain't mentioning their names, but a lot of people are wanting to know why they're not mentioned in the Beansworld community. Well, the reason why is because they're too cliquey to be in it. However, I'm the one that has to help them out some way or another. So I do manage to help them out. But they then turn around to me and it's like, well, you know, will you do this? I'm like, well, not really. It's not really. It's I can't, because I don't want to be stuck in any crappy drama. And I've been there, and I don't want my energy to be emotionally sucked out of the whole thing. So that's why I don't bother. But they know who they are, and they're on TikTok, and I see them there in the mentions, right? And it's like the whole thing, and it's like you just think, do you really want to be stuck in, you know, do you really want to be part of their bloody feces? What this whole thing is. But anyway, and the thing is, they're the people that come in and destroy everything. And if you're watching this, right, if you're listening to this, here's my little message to you, right? Please, 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 if you're trying to destroy everything else, which I know you have, everything that you touch turns to poo, basically, right? Here's my little advice, right? The Beansworld family is not cliquey. You may think we are, but we're not. And we're all out there. In fact, I've had a few people this week just DM me, asking me for certain bits that I'm, you know, thinking of getting rid of, but I've not got rid of them yet. Actually, I've got a toy fruit machine, and I am trying to message a couple of people on Facebook very quickly to see if they want this, because if they do, then I need to make sure I get addresses and things. Because the problem with Facebook is it's always last minute. Always last minute. And I'm like, why did you DM me dead late when you knew that whole thing? And the point is, my energy has just been wasted to the point where I just think, do you know what? Screw you. Absolutely screw you. Because they... And by the way, I do want to apologise to Tech World, because I realised that he also wanted one of my items. I can't think which one it was that I got rid of. It wasn't the V-Smile Pocket. There's a few people that were after that. But I did speak to a few people. I did speak to a few of you over it, right? And this is the thing, right? When I'm getting rid of something, and I'll state this here on my channel, and I'll state this on Facebook, please, 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 right? Comment if you want it, and comment your address and everything, because I am sending it to you. I am not asking you to pick it up, because A, I don't know if you have any transport. B, night, mummy. B, I don't have any transport. And C, if I send it through the mail people, then I'll have done it the right way. So, yeah. So, anyway, I'm going to go now because I want my bed, and I should have gone a few minutes ago. But I'm going now. Good night. Love you all.
11:38 p.m. 11:38 p.m. At 8, 7, PQRS, 8, TUV. Mike trigger. Mike not finished recording.